Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF. Bava Metzia Kufyat Ches. We are holding at the Mishnah on Kufyat Zayin Amud Beis, around 9-10 lines off the bottom of the Amud. V'chein Beis Habad. So just like we had a case of a building owned by two people, in which case the fellow down below, when he's a landlord, right? He has to provide for the structure of the floor above, right? So if the floor fell apart, he has to provide, he has to accommodate and fix the beams, right? In similar fashion, v'chein beis habad, we have, let's say, two people. Okay, so no landlord or tenant in this case, rather two people inherited a property. So one fellow is down below. He has a beis habad, which is an olive pressing facility. Shobana besela, which is actually built into a boulder. Okay, so it's inside the rock. V'gina achas al gabav, and a gina, let's say a vegetable garden, owned by his brother Shimon, is actually situated on top of the beis habad, on top of on the roof. Okay, v'nifchas, and the roof came apart. So what now? Hari b'magina. So Shimon, the fellow from upstairs, he can come down and plant his vegetables inside the beis habad until he agrees to repair the roof, which was understood will be there all the time, right? Until Reuven down below agrees to make kippin, rebuild the arches on top of his beis habad to allow for Shimon to place his soil for his garden. Continues the Mishnah. On another note, a fellow has a wall, a retaining wall, or a tree near the street, and they collapse into the street. And they cause damage. Potter Milishalom, he's exempt. What should he have done? It's an accident, it's an oines. However, if the city inspectors sent him a summons and they gave him a 30-day deadline to cut the tree off. To demolish the wall, which were endangering the public passerby. Now let's say they collapsed. Is he chayav b'sei chazman if it happened within the 30-day period? Potter. He's potter because he was given that time. La'achar azman chayav, but if it was past 30 days, he's responsible for any damages. Continues the Mishnah on another note. Reuven had a wall right next to his neighbor Shimon. V'nafal, and his wall collapsed into his friend's garden. And Shimon turns to his good friend Reuven and says, Panei avanecha, could you clear your stones? I have to plant my carrots. And Reuven says, you know what, higiyucha. You know how expensive these stones are? Take them, they're yours. Ain't shem aloi, we don't, it's not acceptable, you have to clear them. Mishakibul Allah, but let's say Shimon accepted the offer. Okay, sure, great. I'll keep the stones. At that point, Reuven turns around and says, No, I was just kidding. Look, what did it cost you to clear the stones? $100? I'll pay you for that. I'll take back my stone. Too late, right? Now, we no longer accept that offer. So basically, once you offered it to him and he took it, you can't take it back. In similar fashion, Reuven hired Shimon a worker to gather his teven, his kash, his hay, his straw. At the end of the day, Shimon tells his employer, "No, where's my $100 pay that you promised me?" And Reuven says, "Well, guess what? I'm out of money. Take your hay, the hay that you work with, hay for pay." We don't accept that offer. He promised the money. You have to pay him money. And Rashi says, even though throughout the entire Torah we find that Shaveh kesef kekesef, anything that has monetary value is considered like money. You can't just do that in this case because here, says Rashi, the pasuk says, Baal tolen schara, you can't hold back his wages. Whatever the wages, as per terms of your contract. You can't just give him hay instead of his pay. However, if the fellow accepted it, if Shimon said, okay, I'll take the hay for pay, then Reuven turned around and said, no, I was just joking. Hey, look, here, take your $100 pay and I'll take back my hay. It's too late for that. Okay, now let's go back and analyze Mishnah case by case. We began with a gina, which was situated on top of a Beis Habad, where he's having trouble with the rooftop there, and the Mishnah says he can relocate his gina into the Beis Habad. Nifchasa, right? So the floor came apart. Rava Mabaruba, according to Rav, this relocation is only applicable if most of the area came apart. Ushmol Amar Barba, according to Shmuel, even if it's a small hole, 4 by 4 tefachim, that is sufficient to allow Shimei to come down with his entire garden. Why? Rava Mabaruba, according to Rav, it's only true if most came apart. Aval Ba'arba, if it's just a small hole, 4 tefachim, okay, leave your garden upstairs and just bring some, a small section which would have been up on the 4 tefachim. So instead of upstairs, you bring that downstairs, but the rest keep upstairs. Aval Ba'arba Adam Zareya, Chetzi Lamata, Chetzi Lamala. It's acceptable. It's reasonable to ask a person to plant part of his garden upstairs, part downstairs. Ushmol Amar Ba'arba, according to Shmuel, even a small hole, 4 tefachim in size, already allows Shimon to relocate his entire garden downstairs. He wants to plant it all as one. Ein adam zareh chetzi lamato v'chetzi lamalo. You can't expect a person to plant part of his garden downstairs and upstairs. Utzricha. Now, if you remember, we had the same exact discussion in the other Mishnah regarding the floor, the roof between the main floor and the second floor coming apart. There as well, Rav says it's only a concern if it's roiv. Shmuel says even ba'arbo. Utzricha, why repeat the same discussion all over again? No, each case has its own special, unique lesson. Di Yashminon Dira, we only discuss this case by the dwelling, by the house. Ba'akam Shmuel, I would perceive that perhaps Shmuel is only saying his halacha specifically over there. Even 4 tefachim is a major concern. Mishum Deli Avidi Inshi, the diary. Portahacha, or Portahacha, typically people don't live partially here and partially there. So since part of his floor came apart, he wants to totally relocate downstairs. When it comes to planting vegetables, you can distribute your vegetables. It's typical, it's perfectly acceptable, perhaps, to plant a bit here, a bit there. So in this case, perhaps Shmuel would agree to Rav that unless there's really a significant collapse of that garden, he should be required to plant some upstairs and part downstairs. So the point is no. Once a significant portion, like 4 tefachim, has been demolished, he can totally come downstairs and plant up the facility downstairs. On the other hand, if we only discuss the case of the garden, Rav, I would say, well, only in this case, Rav says that until Roiv, he doesn't have a right to relocate entirely. But in the case of a dwelling, where it's very inconvenient to have some stuffs upstairs, some stuff downstairs, perhaps even Rav would agree to Shmuel that as soon as there's a significantly sized hole there, even 4 tefachim is sufficient grounds to justify relocation downstairs. That's why we mentioned both cases, and both, whether it's a dwelling, whether it's a garden. Rav says the halacha which allows him to totally relocate the other fellow's facility or the other fellow's apartment is only applicable when most of the area is demolished. According to Shmuel, even Arba Tvachim justifies. In the next case, we have Nosn Leizman. So he has a tree which is precariously leaning into the street or a wall. The Bezdin put him on notice. Okay, now how much time do they give him? What's your typical Zman Bezdin? It's 30 days. And Tosfos says, actually, we learn from here that the number 30 days is applicable to many halachas. For instance, you borrow something, borrow money. Stam halva is 30 days. 30 days is a unit in time which applies to all these types of things. Okay, Mishoya Kessler. So you have this wall next to his neighbor. It collapsed into his neighbor's property. You can't just insist that he takes your broken material. However, the Mishnah says if Shimon, the neighbor, took the deal, he says, okay, I'm going to keep the stones. Okay, and then he cleared it, and then Reuben comes back and says, no, I want it back. I'll pay you for the expense. I want it back. Too late. So we have basically 3 phases here. The wall collapsed, and he's insisting that he takes it. That's phase 1. We don't accept that offer. Phase 2 would be he accepted the offer, but he has yet to clear it. Phase 3, he accepted the offer and he cleared it. And the Mishnah sort of jumps from phase one. We don't allow Reuben to insist, right, that Shimon accepts the stones. And then we go straight to phase three. But if you offered him and Shimon accepted it to the point that he actually cleared it at his own expense, Reuben can't come back and reclaim the stones by offering to compensate for his expenses. What happened to case two? Which would be, okay, he offered it, he accepted it, but he has yet to clear it. Why did we omit that case? The fact that the Mishnah makes mention of Reuben offering to compensate Shimon for his clearing expenses, apparently he already cleared it. Time with the faninu, which leads us to believe that this halacha, that Reuben cannot reclaim the stones, is only applicable when Shimon already cleared the stones. But if he has yet to clear it, loy. We don't say it's a done deal, despite the fact that he already accepted Reuben's offer. We don't say, okay, it's too late to reclaim it. Why? Amai, why? Where are the stones located? In Shimon's property. Shimon's property acquires the stones for him once the offer was made. And once he accepted the offer, that's it, boom, bingo, it's his stones. Right? The Amar B'Yisi, your property has the ability to acquire on your behalf. Answers the Gemara, that's only true when you're trying to give it to him and it's sitting in his property, he accepts the deal, it's his. But in our case, Reuben isn't entirely serious. Right? He's sort of procrastinating. Right? He's taking his time. He knows he's got to clear the stones, so he's sort of wheeling and dealing. Do you want to take them, right? So at this point, perhaps he can still, right? It sounds from the Mishnah, he can still reclaim it, even if Shimon accepts the deal, because he's not really giving it to him to allow the chatzah to be kind of for him. But if Shimon actually clears it out, physically clears it out, so Reuben, we assume, took note of the fact that Shimon put the effort in, and now he can't just say, I was, pushing you off. You see he's taking it. Why don't you say something? Apparently now you're serious about your offer, and now he's cutting it. In the next case, we have a fellow who hired a worker to collect some of his straw, and once again he's offering him the raw material as pay. We don't accept that. Why does the Mishnah have to mention two of the same type of cases? The first, where the neighbor is offering his good neighbor the broken wall, we don't, it's unacceptable. Or in the case where he offered his worker the material that he himself worked on. In both cases, we don't accept the offer, right? Why mention both cases, which seem to be revolving around the same point? The answer is, had we only discussed the first case, I would understand that the reason why, when Reuben offered Shimon, his neighbor, the raw material off the fence, we don't accept the deal mishum de leslie agragabe, because after all, Shimon has no monetary claim on Reuben. He don't work for Reuben. There's no salary that Reuben owes him, right? And he doesn't want the stones. And actually he's hurting him because he's taking away his garden, right? So here, we don't accept this offer. But in the second case where Shimon worked for Reuben, he's an employee, right? So in this case, so perhaps Shimon has to accept Reuben's offer, right? To take the hay in lieu of pay. Why? The Amr Inshi, as people say, Mimari Rashvasich, from the fellow who owes you money, Pari, even bran, right? Virtually worthless material. I mean, poor material, right? Efra, I will collect, meaning whatever you can get your hands on to as collection for your loan, you just grab it, right? So be happy with what you get. He's offering you hay for pay, take it. So that's what the Mishnah has to highlight. Point out that even in this case, no, you have no right to insist that he takes your hay. You promised him pay. On the other hand, had we only discussed the second case, I would say, hacha. In this case, where he worked for him, once Shimon accepted this offer to take home the hay instead of pay, okay, he cannot, the employer Reuben cannot renege and on the deal, can't go back on the deal. Because Shimon is owed this salary as a salary. And once he accepts it, he's kind of. This is my salary. You can't reclaim it. But in the first case of the neighbors, where there is no monetary claim, Shimon is not owed anything by Reuben, right? So perhaps even though Reuben offered him the stones, but the fact is he didn't really owe it to him, so he can just come back and reclaim it. That's why the Mishnah points out the same exact system applies to both cases, which is that initially he can't insist on forcing his material on his neighbor or his employee, but once it's been accepted, he can't reclaim it. So in the first phase, we have a fellow insisting, take my material, we don't accept that deal. But we have a brisa, says Rashi, which is speaking about a fellow, a poyel, a worker, and the boss says, look, I'm sorry, I'm out of money. The stuff that you're working with, you can take that home. Yeah, shemeloi. We accept the deal. And the Mishnah says we don't. We can't insist that he takes that. The answer is, it depends where the fellow was working. Kam b'shaloi. If Reuben hired Shimon to work by Reuben, so he owes him a full pay. You can't give him hay instead of pay. Kam b'shal chaveri. But if Reuben hired Shimon and sent him over to Levi's field to work there, so in this case, Reuben has the option of offering Shimon that raw material. Asks the Gemara, what's the difference? I don't understand. B'shaloi my time, if Shimon worked on Reuben's field, he can't insist, right? Reuben can't insist that he takes the stuff. My time, you know why? He says, you owe me money. So So even if he worked by Levi, the fact is, who hired him? Reuben. He is responsible for Shimon's salary, a proper salary, not hay. The Sanyas, we have a brisa. You hire a worker. Come, do work by me. And directed him to the other fellow's property, and he worked there. Who has to pay? Reuben, who hired him, has to pay him. Of course, he can go back to the other fellow and ask for compensation for what he benefited, right? But ultimately, Reuben is fully responsible for his salary. So basically, there's no difference. Whether he worked by him or by somebody else, the boss has to pay him a proper salary. Okay, says Rav Nachman, I'll give you another option to answer the kasha. Again, what was the kasha? In the Mishnah, we learned that you can't just insist that your worker accepts hay for pay, whereas in the Brisa it says you could. Loy kasha, kam b'shal loy. If he's working by me, I have to properly pay him. Kam b'shal hefker. But let's say I gave him a job to collect hay from hefker, off the street, some unowned material, right? So in this case, it's totally different. Why? So Rashi explains, and the other Rishonim, Ramban explains a bit differently. He says like this, that the fact is, when I hired a person to collect hefker, the fellow knows, the poel knows, right, that it's not mine. And since I didn't clearly indicate that I'm paying you a salary, so technically I'm not really responsible. I don't have to pay you. Rather, I can tell you, take the material for yourself. Right? Take that instead of, right? Whereas if it's bishaloi, if I hired him to work by me, in this case I'm fully responsible. Right? So here I have to give you a proper salary. Eisvei Rav Rav Nachman. So Rav had a kasha. So Rashi explained, there's another point as well, that Rav Nachman, who gave this teretz, holds that Hamagbia Metzia L'Chavera L'Kona Chavera. If Shimon picks up a Metzia, a lost item, hefker item, for Reuven's sake, he's picking it up so that Reuven gets it. Reuven is not kaina. So that also adds another aspect to this explanation. Basically, since he's picking up hefker, and really, I'm not koina, even though I hired him, but Bava Metzia l'chavere lo yikana chavere. So ultimately, I'm not responsible for his salary. I didn't really get anything for an exchange of I didn't benefit anything from his work. Okay, but now comes a kasha. It's true that typically one stranger cannot pick up a metzia for another stranger. But if I hired him, I gave him that task. Here, take $100 to go take metzias. Then I am koina. So ultimately, I'm benefiting. It's to my benefit that you're picking up the hay from the street. So now I am obligated to pay you a proper salary. So even if it's hefker, I'm like a regular employer. Proper salary is in place. I can't just insist that you take that material instead of your salary, right? Metzias poyelet la'atzmei. So typically, even a worker, right? He was hired to paint a house or whatever. He finds a metzia, he keeps it. And he must say, when is that so? When the owner gave him specific tasks. Weed my field, plow my field. He didn't ask him to pick up metzias. So the act of picking up the metzia is his own act. It's for himself. But if he was hired to do random jobs, please work for me all day. I'll give you all kinds of things to do. So in this case, picking up the metzia is also going to relate to the owner. It's an act, it's a mas, it's work that's being paid for by me, right? You're working for me. Whatever you do is mine. Metzia, in this case, metzia, whatever he finds belongs to me because he's basically an extension of me. I hired him to do all these things, including, right? So in our case, Reuven hired Shimon to find Tevin. Fine, it's hefker, but he hired him for that. So now the Tevin belongs to the Balabais, who owes him a full salary. Elam Rav Nachman. Okay, here comes another way to answer the kasha. When can we say that the employer may insist that the worker just takes home the raw material that he found? Like kasha, kan bahagbo, kan bahabata. Both the Mishnah and the Bryce are speaking about hefker material. And Shimon was hired to collect that material. The Mishnah is speaking where he hired him to do hagboha, to lift to make a kinyan. And since he's hired for this purpose, yadai kiyad balabayis, his hand is like an extension of the owner, who now acquires this material, who now owes him a proper salary for this work, and can't just insist on giving him, whatever. Kan bahabata. The Raisa, which says I can insist on giving him the hay as pay. Bahabata, he wasn't tasked to actually pick up the hay. Bahabata, just to gaze at it, to watch it, to look after it. In which case, he wasn't really zaycha. Right? The owner wasn't really zaycha. There was no kinyan done. So now you can turn around at the end of the day and say, look, I know, thank you for your service. You want to get paid? Take this stuff for yourself. So bottom line, according to Rav Nachman, habata by hefker is not really kaina. Amar Rabba, actually, it's not so simple. Habata behefker tanai. There's machlokes whether gazing, whether looking after, or guarding hefker is considered like a kinyan. This none, we have a Mishnah. Shaver svichei shvius. So those guards who were tasked with looking after the grains that grew on Shemitah, right? So they needed to find wheat, barley for the omer, for the shtei alechem, for the Beis Hamikdash. So they hired these guards, right? Noitlin scharan trumas halishka. They took from the Beis Hamikdash trumas halishka fund and paid these workers to watch the grain so that they'll have it available for when they need it. Rabbi Yehuda, you don't have to take pay. You can volunteer your services. Haroitze misnadavu b'shem mechilim. Right? If a person wants, you can donate his time and watch the grain for free. Amrullah, the Chum disagree. Ato imer kain, you're suggesting that it can be done as a volunteer. If that's the case, ein boin mishal tzibur. You know what's going to happen as a result? The omer shtei alechem must be publicly owned materials, right? It's a carbon tzibur. And according to you, if a private person gets involved and is doing volunteer service, it's going to turn out to be privately owned. Why? We're going to see in a minute. And that's it's not suitable for the carbon tzibur. Chachamim evidently are not concerned about this. Why? My love, it appears that the machlekes revolves around this question. These items are hefker, right? They grow on Shemitah. Tanakama savar habata behefker kani. Tanakama says, look, these shemrim, these guards, when they're standing there and looking after it and keeping an eye on the, right, on the hefker, they're kaina. It's theirs. In which case, the only way for the tzibur to get it from these people is by paying them, right? Igra, agra, in. V'iloi. It's the only way the tzibur will own this grain is by paying the workers, because now, remember, now they're being hired. They're hired for this job to do habata behefker. So whatever they're doing relates to the tzibur. So the tzibur is the one that's koined and it belongs to the tzibur. But if they don't pay them, then it belongs to the shemrim. It's privately owned, which is not suitable for carbon tzibur. Rabbi Yisrael disagrees. Habata behefker loikani. Habata is not enough of a kinyan to be kind even hefker. Just like when you kind of from somebody owns something, he gives it you have to make a proper kinyan. Hefker is no different. Not just about being there and designating it for yourself. You have to actually make a physical kinyan. So v'chiazli tzibur u'maisi. So the fact that they're a shemrim doesn't make it theirs. It remains ownerless until the tzibur actually comes, right? They send the people to cut the wheat, and now they're getting it. Now it's theirs. When the tzibur comes along and takes the material, now the tzibur is kind of perfect. It's a carbon tzibur. So machlokes is, what effect does habata have on hefker? So the Rabbanon, they responded to Rabbi Yossi. According to you, it's going to result in a privately owned carbon. Why? Uma ato omer. What do they mean when they said ato omer? What does that mean? Right? He holds that there's no concern because the shemrim are not koina. So how are they? What do they mean when they said according to you it's a carbon yachid? It's not. The answer is like this. They meant to tell them like this. According to your approach, which allows them to watch it free of charge, if you carry that circumstance over to our point of view, which is that habata behefker is koina, it's going to result in the item is being privately owned by the shemrim because they're doing habata, which according to us is koina, right? Ein omer, so we have these materials being brought for the karbanas, and they're privately owned. So according to this approach in the Gemara, this shaila of habata behefker is machlekes tanai. Amar Ravana. Perhaps all agree that abata is sufficient to acquire hefker. And yeah, even Rabbi Yossi would concede that the shemrim are pretty much self-acquiring it, it's theirs. So how do we address that? Because according to Rabbi Yossi, okay, so it's theirs, but then they'll transfer it to the tzibur. They know that it has to be a carbon tzibur. Machlokes is whether we're concerned that perhaps, the fellow who now owns it will not give it away wholeheartedly to the tzibur. He wants to still hold on to it. It's a schus to have his own carbon. Right? That's the concern. The Rabbanon say we have to pay them. You know why? Because otherwise, we're concerned he might not give it back to the tzibur properly. Rabbi Yossi savar loy chayshinan shema lo yimser if Rabbanon say no. Rabbi Yossi says no. He knows that he has to give it away. So you don't have to pay him for that. So let him volunteer. Let him pick it up. Let him do habata. It's his. Fine, but then I'll turn around and give it to us to be used for the carbon. And when the Rabbanon said according to you it's a problem, what do they mean? They meant to say like this. According to your approach, which does not require payment, it takes that and connect it to our perspective, which is that we're concerned in that case, it's going to result in a situation of perhaps these karbanos will not be publicly owned, which is a problem. There's yet a third way to explain the machlokes in the Mishnah. Perhaps all agree that gazing at hefker is not enough for a king. So in this case, the workers, even if they're doing it on a volunteer basis, they're not being koined. It remains ownerless. So what's the problem? Why do you have to pay them? The concern is perhaps there are going to be some strong men, some violent people around the area, and they'll grab away the stuff. We're not going to have it for the Beis Hamikdash. And therefore, we pay them. Why? Tanakama Savar. The Rabbanon hold the kin Rabbanon. Rabbanon established a system that you pay. Once you pay, it becomes publicly known. Well, this is reserved for the Beis Hamikdash. Keep away. The Tikkun Rabbanon L'Meisel Abrazuz. They give him a couple of coins. Ke'echad L'Shami Bal Yisroel. So all the people out there will hear about it. Deliver Shemonah and they'll keep away from this grain. Rabbi Yisrael Savar L'Tikkun Rabbanon say no. There was no takana. You don't have to do that. Meaning, if a person turns down that symbolic pay, it's his decision. So, what did the Rabbanan mean when they say, according to you, it's a problem? It's not a carbon tziva. What do you mean? Why would it be? We just said that habata is not koine, so it doesn't belong to the shomer. So, of course, it's publicly owned. Ultimately, when they pick it up, it's Beis Hamikdash. What's the problem? Oh, listen to this unbelievable twist. They meant to tell them like this. According to your approach, that you provide that volunteer option, according to our point of view, which is that we have a system that the Rabbanan were masakin to pay the workers, so now he's foregoing, listen to this, he's foregoing that salary. So there's a certain amount of money that was sort of allocated for these people now sitting back in the treasury, which technically sort of belongs to these shemrim, but they're foregoing that salary. That's privately owned money. So now anything that's purchased with that money, let's say you go out and you buy an animal for a carbon tamid, is privately owned. That's the problem. It's not an issue with this grain. All agree this grain is publicly owned. Nobody's cutting it until they take it for the Beis Hamikdash. But the brain, according to us, that money was meant to be allocated for these people who are turning it down. There's some karbanis out there that are not going to come Mishal Tzibur because they're going to be purchased with that money, which technically belongs to these people. Rabbi Yehuda, he also explained the same way. Over here revolves around this question of whether we offered money to keep away the Bal Yisroel, the violent people, and that generates this whole concern, resulting in perhaps a privately owned carbon. Okay, so bottom line, we had a Mishnah with several cases. First of which was a Beis Habada collapsed. At what point can the Balagina compel him to repair? We had a tree, a kaisel fell into the street, or fell into another person's property. Can he insist on him keeping the material? At what point could he? What point can't he? We had the same thing with a worker regarding Tevin V'Kash. We had a stira between the Mishnah and the Brisa. We had a couple of ways to answer that. And then we had a Shaila, but Habata V'Hefka. Continues the Mishnah. So this fellow would like to deliver some of the zevel, the fertilizer, the waste, into the street to have somebody, say a farmer, pick it up. He can do that, right? Even though he's dirtying the street. As long as you do it, efficiently in an organized way. As soon as the fellow puts it out in the street, you have your customer pick it up. A mezabel comes and picks it up. And, the mezabel who's intending on using it, mezabel goes ahead and picks it up for his fertilization. Okay, so basically, it has to be done in and out. Ein shor and tit b'shus harabim. So you're not meant to, obstruct the street, only if it's a, very short-lived experience. Likewise, you shouldn't be shayre tit, soak tit in the street. Tit is a certain type of cement. You shouldn't leave the stuff out in the street because it's going to create a hazard. Likewise, you can't form bricks. So Rashi explains they would take the raw material, put it out there, and sort of cut it into, shape it into brick shapes, and let it dry into bricks. You can't do that because that's a lengthy process, which is, not appropriate for Rosh Hashanah. You can do a quick mix of tit in the street to be used for construction purposes. So it's just a short-lived thing. You can't do that for producing bricks. Once again, that's a lengthy process. Okay, a fellow is building a street, right near the building a house right near the street. So he has to get his construction material delivered. Sure, so we allow for that. Maybe. So you get the stone guy to deliver the stones, and right? You stop bricking. So basically, without delay, right? So we we allow for these builders to deliver their material to the street, even though it's in the street, but it's a short-lived thing for the sake of immediate construction. That is acceptable. Vim hizik, but if there's any damage done as a result of this material, mishalam hizik, he has to pay for damages, despite the fact that he's allowed to do this, but he has to be extra vigilant not to cause damage. But Rabban Shimon Ben Gamliel Omer, he disagrees. He says not only are you exempt from any liabilities, you even have 30 days in advance of your job to start delivering your material, and you're good. Perhaps our Mishnah is not going like Rabbi Yehuda. The Sanya, Rabbi Yehuda says, when it was customary to bring out the zevel into the street, so they used to bring it out so that it's the traffic steps on it, and that somehow helps it along, and it's it's part of it's a phase in the processing of these volume, right? So when it was accustomed to do, when it was these man, the shah, time to do so, you can do that. You can do so. Adam might see zivil is just a rabbi, be allowed to bring it out in the street. Leave it out there for 30 days. According to Rashi, it means every 30 days. There's some sort of system. You can take it out there and leave it there for a while. So that the traffic out there, people, animals, step all over it, and that somehow helps it along. This was one of the preconditions when Yeshua allocated Eretz Yisrael to our nation, that the streets be open for this service as well. And our mission indicates otherwise. You can't leave it out there for longer than just a short period of time. Answers the Gemara, Afilu Tema Rabbi Yehuda. Our mission can follow Rabbi Yehuda as well. Right? Rabbi Yehuda agrees that you can do it, but if something happens, you have to pay for any damages. So our mission is simply giving us good advice. Look, it's not worth it. Don't leave it out there for too long, because you're going to be responsible. Really, says the Gemara, if you're allowed to do something, you still carry liabilities? But no, we have a Mishnah, right? A famous Mishnah where the Mishnah mentions Chanukah, right? Moide Rabbi Yehuda ben Ner Chanukah shel potter. Even Rabbi Yehuda agrees. If a person left his Ner Chanukah outside and something happened, it burnt down the city, right? He's potter. Because he's allowed to do that. So what do we see? When you have the green light, you're not liable. My lav, Rishus Bezdin. We assume the word Rishus refers to the Bezdin giving him Rishus. And likewise, by the Zevel, if he's allowed to do that, right, the city bylaw allowing him, he should be exempt from any liabilities. Lo Rishus to mitzvah. No, there it's special. It's a special thing that he's doing. He's doing a mitzvah, publicizing the Nes of Hanukkah. So there we give special status. But if it's just something which we allow you to do, like bringing the Zevel into the street, although you're allowed to do it, but be careful because you're liable for any damages. Vatanya, hold it, but we have a brisa which clarifies it further. In all situations where you're allowed to dirty the street, deliver your stuff, etc., like exporting your zevel into the street according to Rabbi Yehuda, which is allowed. If something happens, you're still liable. For Rabbi Yehuda, paita. No, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you're pater. If you're allowed to do it, you're pater. So clearly, Rabbi Yehuda would say, by zevel, you're pater, and why does our Mishnah indicate otherwise? So apparently the proper conclusion is yes, Masnis in our Mishnah, which indicates that he's responsible for any damages caused by his zevel in the street, despite his allowance to do so, must be the like Rabbi Yehuda, not Rabbi Yehuda, who says that when you have Rishus, you're pater. Amar Abaye. Rabbi Yehuda is not the only one on this list. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon, all three of them, Kulu Sfiralu, you have the green light, you're exempt. Wherever the Chacham allowed you to do something, and if you proceeded, but it causes damage, potter, you're potter from any liabilities. Rabbi Yehuda, well, as we just said, Hadam Aron. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, where's that? And now Mishnah as well, the last line of the Mishnah, right? This non. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, you're allowed to deliver your construction material in advance of your project, even 30 days in advance, and you're exempt for any liabilities. That's number two. Rabbi Shimon, and number three, this non. So a fellow put his oven up in the second floor. So it presents a fire hazard. You have to fireproof it, right? You have to ensure that there's a thick layer of cement, a flooring material beneath the stove to insulate it, to protect from fire. Ubakira, a range which is smaller in size, all you need is a tefach, a less amount. But be careful, because even if you did all this, you took these extra precautions, but if something happens, you're chayiv. Rabbi Shimon, I don't know. What's the point of protecting it if you're liable? The only reason why we gave you all these stipulations, all these fire codes, the point is that if something actually happens, if it catches fire, you're potter. So he's going with the same point. If you're allowed to do it, you're good. On the topic of construction, Chatzav, this fellow who quarries the stone out of the quarry, Shemasal Asasas, who took the stone and gave it to the stone former, the chipper. And something happened then, the stone broke, Hasasas Chayiv. So this fellow who was tasked with forming the stone or designing the stone, now it's in his possession, he's Chayiv. Hasasas Shemasal Achamar, what if he handed it over to the donkey driver to bring it to the building? Achamar Chayiv, something happened along the way, only the Chamar is Chayiv. Achamar Shemasal Katav, once the Chamar gets to the side, gives it to the porter, something happens then, Hakatav Chayiv. Hakatav Shemasal Labana, if he hands it to the builder, to put it on the wall, Habane Chayiv, something happens then, the bricklayer is Chayiv. Habane Shemasal Adrichal, Adrichal is the last fellow, he's like the architect, he does the final inspection, makes sure all stones are lined up perfectly in place. So now he's in charge. Adrichal Chayiv, something happens at that point, he's Chayiv. But if ultimately he put the stone on the road, on the course, right? It's sitting on the house. And at this point, Vizika, something happened. The thing dropped and caused damage, right? So now, instead of the individual being chayiv, kulam chayim, they're all equally responsible. Chayav on the shalom. So up until that point, only the fellow who's actually handling the stone is responsible for anything that happens. But once it was placed on the building, they're all equally responsible. But the Brisa says, no, achron chayiv, only the last fellow who was engaged is chayiv. Kulam turn, everybody else is exempt. Like Kash, the answer is like this: kam b'schirus, kam b'kablanis. Depends in what context they're being involved. Were they hired as laborers? So then you're only liable to the extent that the item is still in your possession, right? Once you give it up to the next fellow, you're done. Kambakablanis. But when the Brisa says that the Achron is chayiv. Sorry, when the Brisa says that they're all chayiv, right? Once you put it onto the right, so I mean, all agree that if it drops out of anyone's actual hands, only he's responsible. That's a given. The question was, what happens once it's placed on the building? One Brisa says they're all equally responsible, and one Brisa says only the last fellow, the Adrichal, is chayiv. That's speaking where they were hired workers, schirim. So look. While I'm handling it, I'm doing my job. Once I give it up, I'm done. So once it's placed on the building, only the last guy is responsible. He put it there. Whereas if it's kablonis, they're contractors. Right? So they're all sort of equally responsible for the job, for completion of the job. So in this case, something happens. Once it's placed on the building, it drops, it breaks, it hurts something. Right? So they're all equally chayiv. They all equally share responsibility because they're tasked with looking after the completion of this job. So they're still involved to ensure a successful conclusion for the job. Okay, let's leave the rest for tomorrow for the last DAF, the Siyam DAF. Let's just recap this last piece of the Gemara. So we had the Mishnah, which dictates to us regarding the safety of the passerby in the street during construction. We have Shittas which say that if you're allowed to do something, if you have Rishus, you're pater from Tashlumin, and we discussed the conveyor system and the responsibility involved in building a house. All the best to you on Tzlacha Rabbah.